Hey guys, and welcome back to the second episode. In this episode, I'd like to take some time and just really concentrate on the unsung heroes of the tabletop world, the NPCs. So tonight, I'm going to talk to a couple of DMs, and we're going to see what they think or how they use their NPCs.
I highly doubt.
Like there's ones that like I had them come across in a fishing wharf. They came across just this little grungy little boy, and they heard some of his story, and they immediately did exactly what I wanted them to do, and they followed that little boy to go help him. And then they found a deeper, darker hook into this actual story that I was wanting them to get.
I actually use them probably every 5 minutes of every game I run. I'm dragging in some sort of new NPC, just usually based off what the other players are doing.
NPCs to me is actually kind of getting players interactive with the story on a more personal level.
A lot of NPCs I've used for D&D 4.0 when my friends and I were starting to play. We used them for combat purposes, used them for helping tell a story. Some of them gave quests. The way I run things is a little more open world. I let the players decide if they want to try to find quests or not. And a lot of NPCs provide that. I plan everything out for it.
I use NPCs mainly as plot devices, little flavors for the characters.
NPCs to me can actually be more personable, so a player can actually, feel something and be a part of the story, has somebody that they know their back history, and World of Darkness is very much about things do die. So when sometimes that NPC dies, it can kind of hold an emotional tie to that person. So I like to see emotions from the players and try to do that.
Little flavors for basically the entire storyline. Because if you don't have NPCs to give the cities or the towns or the areas that your players come across, then it gets very bland. It's not exciting. It doesn't add any personality to it. So I use NPCs as either just decorative things, or sometimes I'll throw them in there as ways to kind of gently nudge the players into the campaign itself.
Not really. I just run with what comes to my mind.
All the time. I'll kind of like how in Pokemon, Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny keep showing up over and over and over. In one of my games, I actually had a shopkeeper come up over and over and over and over. Eventually, the party asked, "Didn't I see you in that last time?" I don't know what you're talking about. That was the answer every time.
Actually, yes. I have one reoccurring character. He was actually the first character I've ever played, and I love bringing him in. His name's Karthik, and he's just your average dwarf barbarian, but he has an attitude and a personality, and usually he throws a wrench into whatever the party's doing.
Actually, no. Most of my NPCs are pretty much made up. They're generally in the org that we are in, one by night.
If it's a bar, any world, any place, he's bound to be there.
We actually have a certain ground rules of how low a gen it can be, but it's pretty much just custom. Canon NPCs are supposed to be rare and unique in interaction within the World of Darkness. So once in a while, somebody might need assistance in portrayal of an NPC, but I've never done it.
I've actually used characters that some of my friends had from other games, and I brought them in as NPCs, and it always went over well because everyone was like, "Hey, I recognize that character," and they had fun hearing about it, and they had fun. Sometime after the game was said and done, you know, explaining about it to the rest of the people who had never seen or interacted with that character before.
I typically stay away from NPCs from other people's games just because they're not mine, and I know a lot of people have their own worlds. But if somebody says that I can, then yes, I do drag in a few.
The favorite NPC I ever ran was a Jamaican Malkavian named Jonas. It was a troop game, and he was kind of a Malkavian that believed he can do Jamaican voodoo magic. So it was a lot of fun trying to interact with people with that and do a horrible Jamaican accent.
Definitely would have to be Joseph's Artificer. His nickname is the Blitz. He's completely obsessed with buttons and making all sorts of little knickknacks and artificial things like constructs and machines that don't always go as planned. And it's always fun when they work, but it's even more so whenever they just blow up in his face. Or ours.
For an NPC, it's generally some sort of, we'll go Pathfinder for instance, a fighter class. Because they are extremely versatile and can pretty much do whatever you as a DM needs them to do.
It's an idea that I haven't gotten used yet because I just actually thought of this a couple months ago and I've been itching to try it out. You know how in some stories they'll have like some little person in a little roadside stand just set up there, kind of, you know, quiet, you know, just sitting there chilling. I've had an idea for an NPC to crop up all along the highways within the world, and it'll be from a chain, and it's just this little warlock that will sometimes have really good items, but I'm planning that sometimes it'll have like a cursed item that no one will know about, and it looks like a good item that they'll get just because.
It would have to be the mayor of the town I was running. Simply the town was plagued, and we just simply, the mayor hired them to do that, and they tried to figure out the plot. We never really finished it, but it's because I moved here. But essentially the guy was supposed to be the evil guy.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode's Game Master's Toolbox. Today what we're talking about is NPCs. And the thing to remember is what I like to do with NPCs is I like to put them in a 4-tier stacking. And what that means really is it really means how much information you're going to have to flesh out about the NPC. Most NPCs are down here in the background. All you really need to do for a background NPC is just figure out what they look like. Just one defining feature. This person has red hair, that person has a limp, that person is a gimp, they're walking around with a cane because they're blind. That's all you really need to do. Of course, these are the people that will populate your worlds and your taverns and everything in between. So the next step up, of course, is your single interaction NPCs. These are the people that your players might go buy a gun from, or they might go and buy a potion for healing. They might come and see this NPC if they need some kind of curse lifted, or if there's something they need to get from them. These are usually the NPCs that you see once. However, depending on the NPC and how well the players like that, they could become what's called a reoccurring NPC. What that is it means that you have to flesh this character out even a little bit farther. But the NPC can now hand out quests for people to go do. They can start interacting a little bit, or maybe even go on a small little storyline, or go get something with the players that he needs back at the shop. Of course, after that, the next step up is your plot important NPCs. What that means is your NPC is going to have a whole bunch of information. Now, if you can see, there's a lot of red up here, and there's a lot of red down here. That's all the information the DM is going to need to know. Things like goals, dreams, likes, motivations. future endeavors. These are all things that the DM needs to know, not necessarily the player. However, you look, there's also stuff here that the player needs to know depending on level of the tier. So reoccurring, you really need appearances. You're going to need like your quirks. Are they friendly? Are they not friendly towards us? Up here in the plot important ones, you're going to need their wealth level. Are they in it for the money? Are they in it for themselves? You know, the players are going to need to know what their fighting capability is. Usually the plot important NPCs are statted one way or another. The plot important NPCs are really they're borderline scions of the DM himself. They're someone that needs to be there for the story, needs to be there because the DM might need to rein somebody in, where they might need to balance the party a little bit because there's a lack of something. But usually what happens is plot important NPCs will come, or they'll go, or things will change, and those changes may or may not be good or bad. So, come back next time, and I hope to see you then.
Chaos. It's fun to just toss random chaos in.